Hey, yummy mummies! I have a new episode of Beware the Batman reviews. They're brought to you by my comic book, Red Knight. And Red Knight is available from Primal Paper Comics, primalpapercomics.com, or my Etsy shop, Manos Publishing, at etsy.com. Check them out, and also check out some of the other fine titles at Primal Paper Comics. Okay, we're talking about this past week's Beware the Batman. And the episode is called Toxic, and a brave, brave stance that they have taken, basing an entire episode on a Britney Spears song. But these producers have really got a lot of guts going on here. Also gutsy was there's no mention of reference to Britney Spears. It's obviously a very, very subtle reference here. Mainly the episode is dealing with the first superhero outside of the main cast of Batman, Katana, 00 Alfred, and Barbara Gordon. We actually see somebody else. Metamorpho, Rex Mason, the Elemental Man, if that, I think that's all the names he has. And oddly enough, another outsider, from what I find is interesting about that. Okay, long story short, right, remember that rich douchebag Stag from the first episode of Beware the Batman with Professor Pig? Well, he's back. His daughter, his young, hot, pretty blonde daughter, is dating a security guard. Ew, yuck, he's not rich. They're talking about, in a brief scene, while they're doing a little makeout, that, hey, your father totally hates me, and, you know, he's gonna, like, stand in our way of our love and stuff like that. And she goes, you know, daddy, blah, blah, blah. Right after that, there's a break-in. He's a security guard at one of Stag's super brain lab 4s, where, you know, they have, like, super science and shit like that. Anyway, he chases this burglar through this chamber and gets trapped in it, and the burglar, like, turns on the switches, and it fills up with all these new chemicals that they've been developing, and turns him into the Elemental Man, the Metamorpho, and, you know, he's all kind of changed and monstrous and much bigger than he's usually drawn in the comics. And of course, this has been a radical change, so he's still kind of trying to, you know, figure it out. He's still prone to being really upset, but he still hasn't lost his humanity. He still is Rex Mason under all that weirdness. Anyway, Batman investigates, trying to figure out, like, how the hell could, like, a simple burglar break into Brain Lab 4? And sure enough, it was Stag himself. And instead of, like, getting rid of his daughter's boyfriend through, I don't know, paying him off or threatening to get rid of her trust fund, or doing some other kind of soap opera douchebaggy way to get rid of him, he kind of tries to kill him with the most elaborate, insane idea ever, because his people are developing these chemicals to turn people into Metamorpho soldiers, but it hasn't been tested on humans yet. So he thought, hey, let's kill two birds with one stone, namely that guy who stuck in my daughter. And of course, doesn't work out so well. Batman talks him into laying out a trap in order to catch him, because Batman's on a time clock here, because it's very obvious that he is actually dying. His body's breaking down. So Batman, you know, helps create a way to sort of, what they hope is a way to reverse the effects, but all it does really is stabilize his new form. He's not dying, but he's not changing back to human. And at the end, he sadly escapes, with Stag trying to put some blame on Batman, but Batman is not having it, and tells him that, you know, he's made a copy of the video, the security video, and has already sent it to the police. Presumably, I'm sure, since he's rich and everything, he'll go straight to jail, and that won't be a problem. So, what did I think of this episode? This is probably the episode out of the short 6 episodes we've had so far that reminds me most of the way a lot of Bruce Timm episodes from the animated series worked. We had this sympathetic creature or villain or monstrous hero pitted against, you know, a very, very horrible rich person. And I think the episode mostly works here and there with the relationships, and they keep it pretty focused, actually. Actually, Katana isn't even in this episode. She's away on mission safeguarding the scientist character, whose name I cannot remember, from a few episodes ago, Safe. So, there's some moments, there's some unintentionally funny moments, because the Batman in this episode, like I talked about in the previous episode, Broken, he pretty much feels like, you know, my Batman, and, you know, classic Batman, where, you know, he's smart, he cares a lot for, you know, all sorts of people, even the villains. But it's obvious that he's still young and inexperienced. There's a scene where he gets these, you know, electric cattle prod he has these collapsible cattle prods, which I'm sure he always carries on him, and sticks a Metamorpho with them, and he is like being electrocuted and shocked. His girlfriend is terrified, walks right up to him, and for a second stands right in front of him and looks at him, and then touches him and is shocked herself, which breaks him out of it, and he takes her and escapes. And I remember watching that episode thinking, hey Batman, why don't you tell her not to touch him? Hey Batman, just tell her to stay away. Good going, Bat Dink. I mean, yeah, you know, this is the guy smart enough to take out Darkseid with 5 minutes of prep time and a grappling hook, and he couldn't think to, like, go, hey, why don't you not touch the guy I'm electrocuting? Which is something I usually think is, I think that's just polite protocol, really. Anyway, I really enjoyed this episode quite a bit. It has a good, fast pace to it. Like I said, Katana isn't in this one. I forgot to mention in Broken, in my review of Broken, I was really fascinated by the subplot, the tiny subplot about her looking for the Sword of Souls sword. Or is it the Soul-Stealing Sword? I forgot what it's called. Anyway, the Soul-Stealing Sword. And she tells 00 Alfred the history of the sword, and she name drops Ra's al Ghul, which has me pretty excited. It's like, oh great, are we going to see Ra's al Ghul in this season? Or at least we're going to be building up to him. I mean, first we get Lady Shiva, now Ra's al Ghul. I'm pretty excited. I can't wait to see these characters eventually fold into the episode. Also, the episode ends with there's a minor subplot in this episode about him trying to start a relationship with Dr. Ravencroft from the Magpie episode. And when he takes a break away from her, she texts to someone that Bruce Wayne is hooked, and now I'm going to reel him in. Like, who the hell are you talking to? What are you up to? I'm kind of fascinated to see that. So, I'm really happy to watch this series very carefully set its stories in motion. And so far, you know, there's been a couple episodes here and there that, you know, haven't been the best, but I've enjoyed each and every one of these episodes. And I will give a shout out to the animators. Thanks for putting some extras in a couple of scenes. One of the weird things about the show is every time there's some street scenes, it really does kind of like show how cheap the show's animation budget must be, because there's barely any extras, there's hardly any cars. It's like, why is Batman trying to protect the city? No one lives there. So this episode was a nice, refreshing change of pace, because there were extras walking on the streets of Gotham who had nothing to do with the story, as well as cars. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it really does say something when I see cars and extras, and I got excited. Almost as excited as seeing Metamorpho, which is... think about that, won't you? I think that's it for now, so until next week, push the button, Lindsay.